on, Foxy. It's your birthday. Not for real, just for play. This is Cree Summer, and Moana Nui will be right back.
Aloha mai kako, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode of the Moana Nui podcast. It's been a while, y'all. Dana and I are here in the same building. What is going on? It's good to be back with you guys, though. Tonight we're gonna be talking about our movie, the movie Moana 2. And so yeah, so Dana's gonna be hiding in the background as she deals with the traffic of Atlanta, navigating her canoe through the Georgia traffic.
Yeah.
But she can hear and see and everything, but she's just been hiding her camera. But so tonight we're joined by some great guests. Someone who you probably may know, James Herndon, who is one of our co-hosts here on the show, and he helps us with a lot of our segments. So we're happy to have him join us tonight. Thanks, James.
Happy to be here.
Yes. And then we have a special new guest, which we're really excited to have because he's going to bring another new perspective, specifically about this movie. And so let us welcome Dylan Tautunu. Did I say that right? Tautunu?
Yeah.
Okay. Pruane Smith. And so he's joining us from Indiana, and he is of a Samoan ethnic heritage. Which, if for those of you who may not know, a lot of the Moana 1 and 2 is based on Samoan heritage and culture. So it'll be great to have his perspective with us tonight. Mahalo nui for joining us.
Mahalo nui loa for having me. Whawhataitele lava.
And mahalo to Tita Pawahi for, extending the invite and bringing you into the conversation. We definitely appreciate her for that. And congratulations to her for her PhD candidacy. We're really excited to see all of the great things she's going to be doing, advocating for oceanic peoples, cultures, in the academic space. So hope she's doing well. So, somebody's already in the comments like, will there be a Moana 3? I don't know. You're jumping the gun. We didn't get there yet. So I guess just to kind of get us kicked off, what were your initial thoughts of the film? Was it better, worse, just different? How did it compare to the original film from you guys' perspective? And I'll start with you, Dylan, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think coming from a Polynesian perspective, there were a lot of things that I was grateful for, the representation there. I live in the Midwest. I go to a Big Ten university. I'm not even 1% of the population. So there's nobody around me like me except our diaspora community here. So I looked at it from the perspective of, wow, seeing my culture on the big screen, or at least parts of my culture on the big screen.
Yeah.
Was it better than the first Moana? I'm not sure. Without Lin-Manuel Miranda doing that was probably the biggest difference that I saw. But I still enjoyed a lot of the songs that were in the movie. Yeah.
Awesome. James, what about you? What were your thoughts?
So, full disclosure, I saw Moana 2 yesterday.
You have fresh memory.
So, and I rewatched Moana 1, the first one, earlier today while I was working. So multitasking. And I couldn't believe that it's been 8 years.
I know.
I thought it was more recent than 2016, but no, first film came out in 2016. I'm watching it and comparing to what I saw yesterday. And for me, the level of enjoyment was the same. And I guess the only surprise was that, you mentioned Lin-Manuel Miranda. He did songs on both films. I guess my only criticism really is in the second film, the songs don't hit like they do in the first one. You know, I'm still bopping to, you know, when the sea and the air and the wind, they'll come find me somewhere. Like you still sing that, and you know, I still sing Maui's song. What can I say except you're welcome? Every time someone likes to get on my bad side of like, oh, you're welcome. You know, I'm just gonna roll into that. But I can see how the songs are good in the second film. Don't get me wrong. They're good. They're spot on. They're reflective, introspective for the narrative that's being told in the story. I don't know if they pop the same way they did in the first film, but my level of enjoyment wasn't any different from the first film. Like I thoroughly enjoyed both films. I found myself completely engrossed in what's going on. Like I'm part of the experience in both movies. So I love both of them equally. I can't say that I put one above the other.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, I want to echo on the question too of I enjoyed the film, both films. I got more emotions in the second film. There was parts that made me cry. There was parts that I cheered for versus the first film. I didn't have those waves of emotions like I had with the second film. And then on top of that, even though we didn't have all the songs done like the first movie, there was still the ones I consider bop, like Get Lost. That was a total bop to me. The way that came across with that scene, and even Can I Get a Chihu? That one too, those are my two songs right there.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah.
The first song you mentioned, Get Lost, that because at that point in the film, I know probably jumping around here, but I expected her to be one of the villains at that point. Like, oh, she's twisting the narrative, like she's setting Moana up, and it's like, oh no, she's setting up somebody else. You know what? Because when you first meet her, as far as what she does, the Maui's basically got him twisted in the wind. He doesn't know, you know, how to beat her or get past her. But then when she comes across Moana, it's kind of like the narrative up to that point is like she can't be trusted. And I'm like, oh no, she's going to deceive Moana. She doesn't know, because at this point, Moana and Maui haven't come into contact yet. So it's like, okay, who's manipulating who here? Who is trying to take advantage and come out on top? So yeah, that when she went to that song, by the end of it, it's like, at least from my perspective, I'm like, okay, she's deceiving Moana. She's taking advantage of the situation. And while she was taking advantage of the situation, she turns out she was not deceiving Moana. She was actively trying to help her.
But was she though? No. We need more answers.
I say I agree with James on that.
Post-credit scenes are wonderful.
Yeah, the end credit scenes answer that shows she really did, because I love the fact that she ended up saying to one of the bats, he's going to kill me when he finds out I helped her.
Yeah. That is true. I feel like this one, I definitely enjoyed both films too. And I think what I loved the most, probably because it aligns with a lot of what I was hoping to do with this podcast, is that at the end, you know, the ocean is now united and you see like the different peoples coming together, and hallelujah that they actually showed some Black people, like some Melanesian, like that's because that's a lot of the Pacific Islander cultures that people don't know
about.
And so, you know, when I follow and along with different threads on social media and stuff, like some people get really upset when we try to connect Pacific Islander cultures to African cultures. And I'm like, yes, migratory patterns, like if you follow, there's like mixtures going on all throughout. And that's kind of where, like, to, you know, we have to be aware of like our colonized mindset too, because, you know, we're like fighting against our own roots, in a lot of times because we're being brainwashed, in a certain way. And so I love that. And then I also love the end credit scene when they showed Nalo. I was like, yes. I'm curious to see like where that, like what his backstory is gonna be and how they're gonna develop that. And whether or not that's gonna play out into a Moana 3, a Disney animated series, like how that all plays out. So yeah. Lots of good things. Do you guys think that so we got introduced to a lot of new characters, right?
Mhm.
The Voyagers that went with Moana, the people she met along the way. What did you guys think about character development? Did it feel rushed to you? Do you feel like they gave us enough to connect with the characters? What were you guys' thoughts on that?
For character development, I would say for Moana, yes. For Maui, not so much. Maui's personality is like all-encompassing, overpowering presence, and this is willful, boisterous joyfulness that exudes every time he's on screen. Is I can do no wrong, and if it's wrong, it's still going to be right 3 seconds later. And for him, that's just who he is. It wasn't anything as far as him having to learn or grow. I think that character development came in the first movie where he had to atone for the reason that there's basically a lava monster blocking the way to the island to return the heart of Te Fiti. It's because you took the stone in the first place. Accepting that responsibility that this is on you. Like, we're all here because you did this. In this film, he's basically trying to, in his own way, help Moana do the same thing from another perspective, so to speak. Like, how do we open the pathways of the ocean to connect all the people? Like, I got to break this curse now because all the people are separated and can't find a way to connect to each other because the ocean won't let them. And for Moana, is pretty much just seeing things from different perspectives. Like, you can see the path, but sometimes when you have other perspectives mixed in, the path you see may not always be the best way to go. Like, Matangi is the goddess's name, who basically sang the song Get Lost. That was one perspective. There was and I'm forgetting all the characters who were on the boat with her, but the young girl who was the brainiac, from like that a lot of what you said, like, she was kind of too into her head, but when the three of them were together without Moana, they were pretty much like, okay, we know she's going to give us the pep talk, but we have to show her that we can do this with or without her. Like, so it's not all on her shoulders. I guess she took on extra responsibility when she didn't have to. She can lean on other people. And I think that for her, that was probably hard for her to do, because in the first film, with the exception of Maui, she did it all herself. Now she's got a crew with her, but she doesn't know how to lean on them.
Yeah, kind of just to go off of that, there's like a quote, "It takes a village," and I think that having all those supporting characters and not just having a sole hero, heroine, I really appreciated that. And also that the characters would be people who would be on the canoes. Like, the farmer would be taking care of the live shoots as they go across the ocean. They would have the storyteller. These were like people who would be on the canoes in a sense. So I appreciated that aspect too.
For me, I saw with this film, similar to what James said, like, Moana, her perspective changed because once she was identified as the wayfinder, she had this extra pressure put on her shoulders, and she really showed how it is realistically. You have all these people to depend on you, and you're trying to make sure this happens, and you want to make these things change. But then it was also refreshing, like you said, is seeing all of these people that was on the boat with her also adjusting and changing by learning from each other. Because like you said, the brainiac, she was logical. It was everything logical, and it was no fluff. This is the facts. This is what I'm seeing. This is what's going to be. And each of them brought their own perspective. And it was one of those that, you know, they had to learn to get along with each other. And then, of course, Moana had her little lessons from her sister, Seema. Seema, she was a boss of her own.
Younger
Yeah, I
siblings are always
wish.
bossy.
Right, yeah, the little one. Yeah. I wish they would have played into that relationship a little bit more, because when I saw the trailers, I was so excited. I was like, yes, she's gonna have a sibling. I'm so excited to see what they do with that. And then they just, they kind of glossed over it. I'm sure there's like a lot that was left on the cutting floor of this entire film. So I'll be excited to see the stuff that got removed, because even in the original film, Moana was supposed to have be, I think, possibly the only daughter of, and she had I don't know, 9 brothers or something. So the way they had initially wrote it, I was like, yep, that's a Polynesian family. It's a lot of siblings, and it's a lot of boisterous energy. That's how we do. That's why we got the chee-hoo. So that's where I really wanted to see more of that. Were there any characters that you were happy to see come back, or that you wished we could have seen a little bit more of?
I was happy to see her grandmother reach out again.
Me too.
Because I don't know how I did not recall in the first film her passing during the movie, which basically triggers her to go out. I've been trying to go out there, and my dad keeps pulling me back. Now my grandmother's passed on. I'm not asking for permission anymore. I'm just going. In a way, every time you see the manta rays out there, it's her grandmother's with her, guiding her. And even when in this film, when she sets off with the crew, you see the manta rays swimming underneath the boat, initially when they set sail. So it's kind of the nod, her grandmother's with her, right before she leaves her sister, because they have the little heart to heart about, I don't want you to go, but I have to, it won't be long, and it's there's still family out there with me, even though they're not here, but in spirit they're still watching over me. So it's you don't have to worry, little one, I'll be okay. Her, and the lessons her grandmother's constantly teaching her, and it wasn't so much the lesson this time, just the fact that just seeing her come back again to help in the matter that she did. Basically, you see her along with the other ancestors of the people who didn't come back from this initial voyage. I don't know how to explain it. Resuscitating her, bringing her back to life, if you will. That scene was very emotional.
Definitely. What were your thoughts on that particular scene, Dylan?
Yeah, that was probably one of the most memorable scenes for me. And maybe this just relates to me being, I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Hawaii. How am I Samoan enough? People have these questions all the time, and it's not just Samoan people, but I think we can spread to a lot of different cultures. We have certain insecurities about who we are and who we represent, but I always think of that my ancestors are always here with me, and they're always going to be there to help me. And so that scene kind of symbolized that for me. They were all there for her. So I imagine myself with my ancestors around me all the time when I feel nervous or I feel insecure about something.
Yeah.
So that really touched me. And kind of on a more personal note, I almost had a similar experience. So my grandfather passed away, and we went back to Hawaii for his funeral, for celebration of life. And we were at the beach, and this turtle came up to where we were in Mokuleia. My mom and my sister were practicing for his celebration of life, and this turtle came up, and we were like, wow, that's a real life experience of Ho'ailona, signs in nature. And we were like, that has to be him. He's coming to tell us that he's always going to be with us, etc. So I felt like that kind of reminded me of in Moana with the manta ray scene.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think as Polynesians and Pacific Islanders, we probably all have similar experiences where we feel our ancestors, come close, especially when we're by the ocean, obviously, because that's that's our home. But not just even not even just limited to Pacific Islanders. I'm sure like a lot of other indigenous cultures have similar views of like the connectivity of life in across different realms. And I just find like those particular scenes, like that one, and when she crossed the sea to Tafiti, like those are the ones that like really hit me. Like, oh my god, this is so beautiful to see it represented so beautifully. The sentiment, the cultural significance of it, but also like so beautifully animated and just presented in that way. And I think it's like a very universal message that I think is important to a lot of people who are watching.
Mhm.
Yeah. Dana, what about you? Favorite characters?
Oh my gosh. Favorite characters. I had a couple. Of course, Seema, her relationship with Moana was beautiful because she looked up to her big sis, and at the same time, she won her big sis always near her, but she also gave her opinion, and even though she was young, she was still being heard. But then I love the fact that with this movie, my second favorite character was, you got to really see how Polynesian culture is, that women and men are equal. And the fact that their engineer that designed their canoes and everything was a woman. And even as eccentric as she was, they never talked down to her. They never demeaned her. Which they came back, she's like, what issues you found? Okay, that means I gotta cut the mast like this, and that. And they're just like, wait, slow down. Need you to hear me out. So even though they have to slow her down sometimes, it was they heard her, they know that she has the intelligence for that, and they give her that grace. And I love the fact that we got to see that on screen by a major studio.
Yes, absolutely. Um, and that is definitely a key aspect of Polynesian culture. Even Hawaiian language. I was watching. I can't remember whose stream I was watching, but when it comes to he, she, like it's the same word. It's oya, and so that which definitely shows that it doesn't the gender is irrelevant. Um, you could be kane, pahine, man, woman. You can be mahu, who is someone who's in the middle, and has aspects of both sides. But that's not important. It's just it's a person, and we see beyond that. So, and we see the value of people. So I think that's definitely a good thing that you picked up on, sis. I think I have so many favorite characters, but I think I mean, honestly, I love this world, so I could see so many different spin-offs. But definitely Tutu Tala. Like, she was my favorite character from the first movie. Absolutely. I also love that they brought back Tautai Vasa, who was the the original navigator. Showing that connection to Moana. And like the music from the first one, like when they introduced the ancestors, you have like the percussion drums, which is like, I mean, you hit those things and Polynesian, like something is inside is like, yes, I'm here, I'm awake, let's go, like, and so like hearing that music is always, I don't know, it's like beckoning, to us, regardless of where we are. And so I love that. And, I love the new characters like Moni, who was the storyteller, with all of the different mats and, kind of capturing the stories because our oral culture and like his ability to capture the visual elements of the culture and continue to make sure those stories were going along, with them when they were traveling. I loved him. And he was kind of, like comedic relief too. But he's like fanboying on Maui as well. It's just like
Absolutely. So busy telling the stories that he finally got to be a part of one.
Yes, yeah,
Even though he kept injecting himself in all the stories up to this point. Like he has never been a part of any of the stories he's telling, but he's going to put himself in there somewhere. And it's like, you have a chance to be a part of the story. Embrace this.
Mhm.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there are a lot of new characters that were introduced, and so it puts a lot of potential into this universe for sure. Okay, so along that line, if you could create your own Moana spin-off, which character would you want to focus on?
This is going to sound bad, but only because I know Disney has done it before. So I would love to see a series that is pretty much nothing but Hey Hey and the pig. And just just them wandering around the island, just getting into just dumb comedic random stuff. Like no other humans around other than just like pick them up and put them down from time to time. But just them, just because how lucky is Hey Hey? Like, why is this chicken still alive? Like, why is he not died 500 times? Like I said, I watched the first movie, earlier today, just to refresh like all the stuff that led up to the second film, and he should have drowned no less than 10 times in the first film alone.
The chicken lives.
Right.
Yeah.
The ocean just kept like, here, take your chicken. Take Moana, just get this chicken out of. And same thing in this film is like, now he doesn't fall into the ocean as much, but there are just situations where it's like, how are and I'm blanking on the names, the coconut.
Oh, Kakamora.
Thank you. How did he like? He's just randomly ducking and missing all these poisonous darts. Like, oh, something's over here. Swoom. What's this down here? Swoom. Like, what? Why? Like, this chicken needs to play the lottery and then pass me half the winnings.
Right.
But yeah, that and just probably Seema in like, I don't want to say like the nursery, but with all the other kids her age, just bossing them around.
Oh, yeah.
Because she just has that outward, and again, younger siblings, they're wonderful. Kind of like a series of her, ruling the island, if you will, while Moana is away on a journey.
Right. No, yeah, I love that idea, and that's kind of like what I initially thought of when I was like, oh, they're giving her sister. Maybe they're creating, like some space to make some kids, younger kid specific content. But yeah, she's so stinking adorable. Like we should like match her up. Like she needs to be with what is George Ganser's Beware of Toddler. Like Simea and Beware of Toddler.
Because her energy, I loved it because she'll start off with the cute voice. Oh, this big sister, and then as she gets go, big sister, girl.
Dylan, what about you? Who would you spin off?
I feel like Matangi didn't have that much screen time. I wanted to get a sense of that character more. Like, don't judge a book by its cover. Like, she came off as being almost a villain, but then she ends up helping. So I wanted to see where that went. And I don't know, I just loved the costuming. I love the song. I love the bat motifs. Like everything was really interesting. I wish they could have explored that more. And a spin-off would probably do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Because the previews made her out to be the big bad the whole entire time. And so when you see her, you're kind of like, but I love that her outfit mimicked the wings of a bat. Yeah. So when she flew, she just spread her outfit out and she was gliding just like the bats and everything. Yeah. And then having the variation, like her skin tone, like Hollywood likes to whitewash the Polynesian culture of being very light skinned. And, but seeing that she had a darker skin tone and so many, even in her, in Moana's own tribe, not everybody had the same exact skin tone either. So you have variants there too.
Yeah, definitely.
So it shows colorism was taught through colonization.
Absolutely, 100%. Oh, I don't know who I would spin off. Oh, so many spin-offs, and there's things that I want to say, but I gotta. Oh, you guys will find out next year.
Topics to discuss on the show coming soon.
Yes. But it was good to see the Kakamora again. They're definitely like some of my favorite characters. Just
Yes.
like, everybody asked me like, what are they supposed to be? Like, who cares? They're cute.
They're coconuts.
Cute and dangerous.
But I love the fact that this movie explained why
Yes.
they were the way they were. Because the first movie made it like they were obstructing Moana's way, they were attacking her with no justification. And this movie was like, no, we will ignore you if you just sail past us. But as soon as you bump into us or get on our in our space, we're coming for you. And then you find out they're just like us. They're trying to get back connected to where they're from. So then it was like, okay, but the one that was teamed up with Moana, he was a bad little something. He in trouble, and all of a sudden he just pops out of nowhere. And they turn around and he's just like, exactly.
That's gonna be the thing going forward.
Yes. And even though it seemed like in my theater, people lost it when they were dealing with the clam, and he went to go cut they were like, no, he isn't. He's trying to take him out. But he looked at them and was like, we're going down with the ship. We're going to save you. We're not going to drag you with us. And did that and was just like, nah, he's giving respect to his chief and his people. Like, no, we got this. And all. But then after that, he was GOAT the whole entire movie. Even with Hey, he was just like, dude, yeah, come here.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah, I did love that aspect, like you said, Dana, of them showing them in basically the same regards as Moana, trying to reconnect with their people, get back to their original island as well. Like everybody like was affected by this curse that was put on, to separate the people and not bring them back together. So this is, the Moana's crew is basically a microcosm of just what was trying to happen, a large community coming together to bring, the community back together or connect them again. And that didn't happen until her crew actually connected with each other. So once they got locked up with each other, then they were able to, accomplish their mission.
Definitely. And I feel like a lot of that message, like people should take away that message, not just for Polynesian culture, but just for today,
in general,
right? Like
easier said than done.
100%. Definitely easier said than done, but like, good reminders, that lessons that we can learn from, what seems to be just entertainment. There are messages to be taken away. Let's see. Maybe Dylan, this could be more for you. Did Moana to explore new aspects of Polynesian culture or mythology from your perspective?
Yeah, so I guess the thing that I remember the most is probably the Ava ceremony that they had, which I thought was a nice touch. And for those of you who don't know, the Ava ceremony is typically done in a faliatele or a faliafolau, which is that oval-shaped building that they were in. And it's usually done at at least for Samoan culture, what's called a fono, which is the village council meetings. So when all the chiefs get together, sometimes they'll have an Ava ceremony. So I thought that was a nice touch to put that in there. And it was also her title ceremony, which was in Samoan it's called the Saufa'i. So all of the people in that would have had a title and would have gotten the title the same way that Moana got her title, Tautai Wasa. So I thought that was a really interesting touch. As far as different myths, I was trying to piece together different myths from different Polynesian cultures. So in the Paumotu region, which is north of Tahiti, um, they talk about Maui being swallowed by a giant clam, like we saw in the movie. I couldn't find any traces of Matangi other than that Matangi means wind in a lot of Polynesian languages.
Mhm.
It seems to be related to a Maori myth. Um, Apu Matangi, I think is the name. It's one of the children of Tawhiri Matea, who is the god of storms. So kind of like Nalo. It's
Ah.
as if the child of Nalo would be Apu Matangi. So that I could see that connection there. The bats was another interesting thing. The only inspiration I could see behind that was there's a Samoan myth of a high-ranking chiefess who's married to a chief, and he has another wife who's Tongan. And basically, in the story, she does something terrible to the Tongan wife's child, and so they're going to. She's sentenced to be burnt to death, and or so she's like isolated on an island. She makes friends with the bats, and the bats bring her food so that she'll survive. And then eventually she's sentenced to be burned alive. The bats come and they actually urinate on the fire to extinguish it. And so she gets a title based on the bats. So that's the only,
Interesting.
yeah. So there's a lot of interweaving of different Polynesian cosmologies,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess is like the diplomatic choice. You don't want to focus solely on Samoan culture or solely on Maori culture if it's supposed to represent all of Polynesia. And hopefully in Moana 3, the rest of Oceania, going out to not just Polynesian culture, but expanding that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a good like so what I've noticed in different kind of forums and threads is there's some people who like that they're incorporating like a lot of different aspects of Oceania to do that in a united way, and then I see other threads where they're like, oh, but that's not true. That like what culture are they trying to represent? And I'm like, guys, you can't have your cake, you eat it too. Like, can you see the win in this? And like, obviously, it's not going to be perfect. It's Disney, right? Like, so Disney, like, they have to. They're trying to appeal to a wide audience. That's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, while yes, of course, you want to see like very specific aspects of your culture, but I feel like this is a way to expose people who would have never even thought about Pacific Islander culture, maybe even knew about it because the Pacific is broad. It's remote. Not a lot of people talk about it, and not a lot of people understand just like how diverse the cultures and the peoples are throughout it. I mean, quite frankly, a lot of people don't even really understand like how remote like Hawaii is in the Pacific. They're like, oh no, but it's just off the coast of California, right? No, you fly from the East Coast to California and you're halfway. You still got the same distance from there to Hawaii. Oh, but I thought it was like an hour. No. No.
Trust the people who've flown it.
Yes, absolutely. But no, I love that they incorporate a lot of different cultures regardless of like where the actual origin is, because it piques my curiosity. I'm like, ooh, let me go dig in and see what other stories there are. And it makes me, as someone who is a writer and wants to celebrate our cultures, it gives me inspiration for like how to incorporate it into my children's book series or the other projects that I work on. And it's really fun because there isn't a lot of content around it, so it gives you a lot of freedom in terms of being able to create. And I know I saw Ryan on here. I don't know if he's still on, but as like my illustrator, like I know he, like whenever I tell him stories, he's like, oh my god, I'm seeing this, and like, oh, this is gonna be great, and so for us, it definitely makes our creative process a lot more broad, and it creates a lot of flexibility for us. And I know for me, like trying to convey it to him visually, like it's always helpful when I can be like, you remember the scene when they did this? Okay, but add this and you know, add this aspect, put this on steroids, tone this part down, you know. Yeah. So it's
And
definitely
Moana, I love that for the theater I was at, the conversation that started was when they were sending Moana off when she was going on her voyage. Most people didn't they because of the popularity of Haka, they think the Haka that has to be always this very strong performance and everything. And I'm like, no, that is typically when you're intimidating the enemy, when you are in, and of course we see it for the soccer teams in Australia and stuff, is because it's their intimidation for the other team that they're doing this for. But the one we're seeing in the movie is, I was like, there's ones for newlyweds. There's ones for when you're they typically do when you graduate high school and college because it's your journey to your next step. So that's what they were doing for Moana. I said it's the same thing. You're not going to have that high power haka like you see typically on TV and everything that's on social media because that's competition that they're doing, intimidating the competition. They're not going to do that same one to Moana because that's basically like her saying, "Okay, we want to fight. Okay, let's fight."
I mean, no.
It's more of a wish you well, good luck on your journey.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're with you in spirit. And you know, Dana, you speak on that, and because I guess the haka has found its way into the mainstream through various forms of social media over the last decade or so, the outside viewpoint is skewed because there's just this one sole perception of it. And you know, part of that is the limited nature we put on ourselves, those of us outside, to say, oh, this, okay, that's all it is, without having to dive deeper. Well, are there more to this? You know, and Moana, you talked about that earlier as far as glad to see the additional cultures being represented in Moana, not solely just Samoan. You're looking at how other cultures along the Pacific Rim. I'm glad you spoke about that because that's what something I was wondering as well. Like how, because you kind of see that at the end of this film where like all the peoples are coming in is like, okay, so they're expanding like the entire Pacific Rim almost, as many cultures as possible. So it's like you said, it's not just Hawaii. There's, you know, the New Zealanders pretty much were more known, at least from my experience, the haka down there because New Zealand's separate from Australia, and then what Japan, maybe Korea, you know, that Alaskan bridge and whatnot. So it's like I would love to see, you know, for a third film, how many of those cultures they expand upon going forward, considering how this film ended. Like that's something, you know, that and yes, we joke, we know it's Disney, they're trying to broaden the audience as well, but it's like when you're exploring these cultures, you have to explore them from an aspect of the people who live these cultures. And I'm glad that you're seeing that not just on the screen, but when you look at the credits as well, you know, and you know, with the names attached, some of the names outwardly stand out. Okay, these people, culture, and even if the names don't stand out because they seem somewhat generic, you see them and you know that, okay, so they're of the culture as well. And I'm glad that that's being done. And it's not so much that they're hands off, but they're trusting, they're leaving it to those who are in the know, who are going to be respectful and do this justice. You know, and not pretty much like, well, we need someone who, no, you don't need that outside person's viewpoint in there to water down the experience that's being put into these projects. Like let them breathe organically on their own and develop, and maybe it does make people outside, you know, more curious to genuinely want to learn, and not just from a source of, oh, well, I saw it on this thing, so I'm an expert. You know, like.
Yeah, and there are like so many different cultures. We got like the
Yeah.
Solomon Islands, the Marianas Islands, we got the Cook Islands, we got Tonga,
Mhm.
Tahiti, French Tahiti. I mean, I know I'm forgetting like a whole bunch of them, but like, and it's so beautiful. Like, there's a lot of similarities, but there are a lot of beautiful nuances too. And even if you stand, you see like the nuances between the Pacific cultures, and then you put them next to the African cultures, and and some of the Middle Eastern or Southeast Asian cultures, you can notice like some
Mhm.
similarities that are tying it together. Um, Not just from like the traditional garb, but even in like the structures that they create, the pottery
Mhm.
that they create. I love that they brought the pottery because the Lapita
Yeah.
people is what, at least academically, like has shown that is the connective tissue, like from Southeast Asia, running into the Pacific. Like that is the peoples that tend to unite it. And so I could see those elements, knowing some of the history behind it. I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. Like I love seeing that.
Mhm.
And so hopefully, that will create even more, curiosity. I feel like history really depends on how it's being framed to the people, and in a way that is conveying it to someone in a message that like piques their interest. Because like I know when I was in school, like in history, I was just, it was all American history, which was like, okay, it's the same thing, but like, what about my own history? Like, I live in Hawaii.
Mhm.
Tell me about my history. Tell me about the people, that I come from. And so, like, the more that we can bring those different histories, not just focus
Mhm.
solely on American culture, but global culture. Um, I don't know. It's so beautiful to appreciate, and that's something that
Mhm.
definitely is like one of my passion areas for sure. Because yeah, it is just so beautiful.
Yes. And Moana, how you were talking about how people couldn't understand the different cultures we were seeing at the end. I see it in a different perspective because most of the indigenous cultures were wayfinders, as they will call them,
Mhm.
because both in the African culture, because we see in the history of Hawaii, we had um, people from Africa that came to Hawaii and they helped bring aspects to our island. And we're seeing it with a lot of the cultures throughout history. Of course, that's not told in the American textbooks, but it is one of those that, hey, in Africa, they were not just kings and queens, they were sailors and wayfinders. There were, mathematicians, things like that. And this movie at the end was showing how these cultures that we were all talking about, they came together at the end because they all were from cultures that had mutual respect for each other and sailed to each other's islands, learned from each other, and we adopt, and that's where we start seeing that connective tissue happening because coming to Hawaii, someone is going to say, "Oh, I love this portion of your culture. I'm bringing it back to Africa." And then we adopt some things from Africa. Same with the Samoans. And that's why, like, I always tell people Hawaii is this melting pot of all these cultures that have been entwined over the years, that we have those aspects that it just intertwined from Asia, from Southeast Asia, all of this intertwined in our on that island. And that is also kind of a lesson to continental United States,
Hmm.
that we are not taking the time like these indigenous cultures to learn from each other. Because if we were very forefront with history and about the different cultures, I think it will make a lot of change. But we want to whitewash it and change the narrative. My favorite is in Texas, there the textbooks for elementary and middle school, slavery was a choice. We came here for work experience. I was just like, these kids are learning that slavery, we came here for work experience. Oh, okay. And then, of course, they have the one line for Hawaii: join the United States as our 50th state. And it's just like, are you going to say how we joined? Because we didn't join by choice. And same with like Puerto Rico and, the connection with Samoa and things like that. It's just like we need to have that unfiltered truth so we can learn from it and not repeat it.
Yep. You need to see all sides of the story.
Mhm. Absolutely.
I think related to the historical aspect, I like that the film interspersed parts of star navigation into the film.
Yeah.
Because I think if you're not from Oceania, you have no idea, you just see all these islands far away from each other, you might have this idea that people just floated there and they just happened to be lucky and ended up on land. But that takes
Christopher
away the
Columbus.
agency, that takes away the technology that those people had to go across the ocean using the stars. And kind of related to that, the fact that it comes from Mau Pialug, who's from Micronesia, and it was resurrected in Polynesia through that way, kind of that way we were able to because of that connection.
Yeah, definitely. And I think so Nainoa Thompson is the from the Polynesian Voyaging Society, and he's he learned from Mao and has been perpetuating it in Hawaii. He is part of the Oceanic Trust that was, consulting for this movie. So it's beautiful to see those experts from our culture having agency and being able to shape and direct the different aspects of the film, and like what would be on the boats, the type of skill sets. I mean, like, just I know, like, in this technologically advanced society that we are in now, it's so easy to downplay something that doesn't have technology. But just think, like, there was no paper, no pen. This is all memory and observation, and like, just think about, like, we have really short memory now because we're bombarded by information.
Yes.
But just like the smarts that it take, one, to like see the sky for what it is and how it guides the different pathways,
Yes.
to remember it, to be able to navigate to one place, come back, understand the currents. Like, I think a lot of people, like Pacific Islanders, we understand the power of the ocean. It's not a pool, like, where it's like, oh, that's why a lot of people come to Hawaii and they drown because they think that they're going to the pool. The ocean is like a woman. She has her moods. She can be unpredictable. She can be strong. She can be calm. Like, and she's not always the same. So, like, navigating her is not easy, even if you're just going a short distance, even between our own islands, like, meaning Hawaii Islands, like from Kauai to Oahu. Like, even that channel is dangerous. So if you are not finely in tune with nature and the elements and how those behaviors are, bloop, you're gonna flip, and you're not gonna pass the reef. Like, really, really. So, like, that is something that, like, when I really think and sit back and appreciate that, like, it's very powerful. That we have gone so far and we have been able to navigate and we have been able to overcome a lot of those challenges, and been a resilient culture even today. Like, the things that we navigate are not the same, but like those things that are ingrained in us, connected back to our ancestors who like made it this far. Kind of back to what Dylan was saying earlier, like, yeah, when I feel insecure or unsure and I'm going into new territory, which is very much what they're doing, right? Like, I just try to remember that even though physically I'm by myself, like, my family is around me, my ancestors are around me, and like, how do I want to build upon their legacy, and overcome whatever I think looks like a huge challenge, but it's really not as big as we make it in our head a lot of the times. But yeah, it just reinforces the respect and admiration that I have, not just for Pacific Islanders, but all indigenous cultures who have, embraced their own unique, special contributions and how a lot of that gets taken for granted now because we are in more of an instant society where like I can just order my Uber, right? Or I just look at my GPS. I don't even need to know where I'm going. I'm just gonna follow the arrow. Yeah, we might follow the arrow like into trouble. So you should probably still have a general sense of where you're going. You know what I mean? So
Right.
yeah. Sorry, I went a little bit off tangent there, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Alrighty. Well, look at that. We close to the hour.
Yes.
Let's see. Okay. So going back to the first question that Nicholas asked, will there be a Moana 3? And what do you guys want to see in Moana 3?
I'm gonna say they let it out to be that because one, a lot of people, which I've been seeing social media blowing up, is Moana a demigod now because of what the ancestors. She didn't get the full tattoo like Maui that he is full demigod, but you can see how it lit up. She got some powers. We don't know what it is, but she gained something with that connection. And then on top of that, in the credits of the fact that the villains are teaming up because our favorite little crab from the first movie, he came back. Came back at the end. He wanted song. But it was one that you're seeing they could have the possibility of him teaming up. Like, hey, I got burnt by Moana too. Let's the two of us team up. And it was already said, this is only the beginning. He is going full throttle to get back at her because she was never supposed to make it to that island. And he was purposely making sure none of the wayfinders found that island. And she got the shortcut with the help and then also having Maui too. And the fact is, I want to also find out how much Maui was impacted too, because his powers were taken away. You saw his tattoos completely removed when he got struck and hit the water. Even though the ancestors gave it back to him, we don't know the limitations of his powers, even though he got his powers back.
Good catch on that, Dana. I forgot to mention that part. Dylan?
Yeah, I think I already mentioned this before, but I'm excited to see, since they have the Oceanic Trust, if that will include people from Micronesia, people from Melanesia also, as they suggested with the ending of that story. So I feel like because I like the cultural stuff, that's what I'm most excited about, is if they do a Moana 3, how are they going to incorporate those into it?
Yes, me too.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what's already been said, like that is kind of ambiguous, Dana, is whether Moana is a demigod or not, because yes, she did get the tattoo, and we learned in the first film that Maui's tattoos are basically a representation. They basically just appear magically for every deed he's committed or contributed to. So Moana gets her first one for raising the island. But what does that mean now? Like, because of what we know how Maui got his, we see Moana get her first tattoo. And again, because it seems like she was asking the question at the end and he interrupts and is like, yeah, but my tattoos are still better than yours type thing. And then they just carry it's hinted at, but we're not going to address this now. And we're just going to keep on going with what's going on in this film. So absolutely, you like an answer, but I guess the ambiguity of it is great for discussions like this and speculation going forward as far as what we could possibly see in that third film, on top of reconnecting all the tribes, all the people around that island who it seems like this island was, for lack of a better term, this island was basically eaten, and everyone pretty much sailed away to various islands. Nalo got upset about something and pretty much just blocked everybody from coming back. Now they're back. So, now they can come back. And, what does that mean going forward for all these people who were scattered, who had no contact with each other for thousands of years? Because Maui talks, remember, Maui's 3,000 years old. So what was it like when he was human, did these tribes still have connection? Like, when was this connection severed? So I definitely conceive that being part of the crux of a third film. But whatever story they tell, like, I trust it'll be a great one, just like this one was and the first one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with Dana mentioning Maui like losing his tattoos, here's like one of like it's been in the back of my brain, but like the tattoos are given, right? Like they're given because they were earned, but it also doesn't mean that you can't take it for granted because we can still take it away. So like who is like is he really a demigod? Like because demigod insinuates human and God, right? Like so different aspects of that. But you see it like throughout the film, his tattoos are like constantly like pulling on him to remind him of his accountability because he gets a little kolohe or a little rascal, the way we say in Hawaiian culture. And he's always like, what are you doing? And so the fact that Maui's tattoos got taken away, right? Like, so you're really not, what's the word I'm trying to say?
He's not that full God. He's still partial. So
Yeah,
he could get it taken anytime.
absolutely. Yeah, you're not absolved from like the consequences of your actions. And so yeah, I love that because that'll be interesting to see like how that plays out for Moana too. And what other people come along on the journey.
Yes.
Indeed.
And if we're going to get possibly a full God that will team up with her to fight against him, because this is the first time we're seeing a actual full God in appearance in the movie. We
Yes.
hear of him, but he's making an appearance and interfering with the humans.
We did see Nefiti in the first one, who because of what Maui did, they basically separated her from the lava monster. And I forget what they call it, the lava monster in the first film, but they talked about her as two different entities, even though she was the same one. And it, Moana didn't figure that out until she realized, oh, there's a hole in the ocean where an island should be. Okay, let me give her the stone. And Moana, you also spoke about the accountability of Maui as well in this film when he lost his tattoo. Same thing happened in the first one where his hook broke. Where he basically had to own up directly to Nefiti, I did a horrible thing. I was wrong. I'm sorry. And she basically fixed his hook and gave it back to him. So, in this one, because in the first one he was basically suffering from identity crisis. Like, who am I without my hook? Like, right. I need my hook to be Maui. Like, no, you are Maui. The hook is just a tool you use. Something he had to understand and get to that point. And in this one, it's pretty much like since he's gone through that process, him losing his tattoos, he didn't care. Like, by hook or by crook, I'm going to help these people get to this island. I got to help Moana. Human hands, mortal beings have to touch this island, which again, they had to think different. It took them a while banging their head against the wall because they realized Nalo was only interested in trying to stop Maui. And it took them a while to figure that out. It's like, okay, why don't you just dive in the ocean and swim down to the top of the island and touch it? Like, why did it take you this long? Like, your ship is destroyed, and now you think different. The ship is destroyed. You could have just, but again, it's one of those things. Is like, you don't think about it in the heat of the moment. You have a plan. You're trying to go through with it, and it's like all good plans fail initially. Like, there's always going to be a hiccup, and accounting for that inevitability. But yeah. All of that to say that Maui's growth from the first to second film, if you will, it is like where he goes going forward. Like you said, that will he be welcomed full on into godhood by the end of the third film? Because he's halfway again. He says he was born human, and then he was God's gave him his powers and the hook. So he has some limited powers, probably his strength and because he's the spirit of the breeze as well. Super strong breath, as he showed in the first film. He didn't show it too much in this one, but the hook allows him to shapeshift. So,
yeah,
so many possibilities. I just hope it doesn't take another 8 years for us to get there.
Agreed.
Yes. I mean, do a Disney Plus series, Disney.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, you're doing that with Tiana. You can do that and make it into bite size versus making a full-on movie. I think that will be more. It'll be an easier process versus trying to do a full-on movie and you have to do all these edits. Versus, I've noticed with Disney Plus, they have more creative freedom with that you don't have as much editing and cuts as you do for the movies that are going to the theaters.
Considering the animation style, I don't know if that would lend to, because I'll say this: the Disney Plus series that they have that use the 3D animation style are all shorts. They're 6 to 12-minute shorts. I'm thinking, like, off the top of my head, the Spidey Friends one that is like Peter, Miles, and Gwen as like little chibi versions of themselves. And like that, those are just shorts. I don't know if I want to see this as a 2D animation style, these characters. The 3D style does it justice, getting that full breath of the environment, which is essential to the storytelling as well, considering you see the history on the walls and the caves and on the sails. So there's something to be said for that, as opposed to, say, a 2D style, which I'm fearful they'll, I won't say devolve, but regress back to for a series. And while I would love to see a series, I don't know. It will have to be done the right way, obviously.
Yeah.
And
I think that initial plan.
Not just rush as like, here's a placeholder until we get the next film. Like, I can wait for the next film.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait 8 years. Like 3, 4, sure. I can do it 3 to 4 years, because again, this style of animation takes time. It's not something you want to crank out overnight. I mean, and you want it done right. You want the action sequences, and even just something simple as just Moana sailing along the waves could probably take months to animate properly, to make sure it's done, the physics that goes into everything, whether realistic or exaggerated, putting all those little attention to detail aspects.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind the series, but I wouldn't want the series to be like, here's a placeholder until we figure out what we're going to do. No. I can wait. I can wait 2 to 4 years.
Do it right.
For the movie, like, I can do this. But again, I wouldn't be opposed to a series, provided it was.
Yeah, I think that's what they wanted to do initially. Was they were going to do a series, and then they changed into a movie. Can't tell you why I know that, but I know that.
Okay.
Inside source.
Sidebar later.
Offline.
But yeah, so no, continue it, please. Like, yes, we want a 3, a 4, a 5. Like, there's so much to explore. But yeah, I want more Samaya. I'm just saying, I want more Samaya.
I'm pretty sure you're going to get more Samaya.
She's so adorable.
Yeah, she's got so much potential, and how smart she is. Yes.
Yeah.
We'll be keeping Moana on her toes.
What'd you bring me?
Exactly.
Like, hello, I missed you. How are you?
Or you've been gone forever. I was gone for 3 days. That's forever.
For little kids, it's forever. Oh, I love it. Let's see. Any other final closing thoughts before we say goodbye until our next episode in 15 minutes?
No.
Well, I'm hoping, the voice actor for Moana don't go too far, because they did say this is going to be potentially her last time playing Moana, I think she does have done a great job both singing and, voicing this character. So even if the next movie she's a little bit older and her sister takes the reins or something like that, I hope they have her come back in perspective or mentoring her or something that she still has a play and being part of it. Even if it means, she's sailing to the other islands to build this community between them now that they're connected. I mean, I'm hoping they keep her in some form of fashion and not recast, because it's similar to Chadwick Boseman. It's like you you can get someone else to play a variant or something else, but replacing her, she put that soul into Moana and this character that we all connected to.
Definitely. Dylan, as a Samoan, does this film do you feel like it accurately, well, not accurately, but positively pushes forward Samoan culture and values?
Yeah, and I think from a business perspective, it's not something that they had to do. And the fact that they have this Oceanic Trust and all these consultants from different Polynesian cultures, some of whom I know, and it's just really great to see how much even the detail into the like the architecture of the houses, of the boats, like very small things that probably everyday people wouldn't pick up on, but Polynesian people definitely would. So I thought that that was really special.
Fantastic. Alrighty, James, any closing remarks?
I'm patiently waiting for more, please.
As are we all. So as I said, well done, Disney. Well done. Look forward to what you do next. Please continue to build upon this franchise, because this is one that I have seen. I mean, obviously, I have the name Moana, so like I've seen kids from every single like their parents come to me. You're really Moana? Like, is that your name? My son or my daughter loves this movie. It's just, and it doesn't matter. They come from everywhere, and I'm just like, this is beautiful. Like, to see that this message is resonating, very broadly. And one of the things that I loved about Moana from the get-go was that it wasn't a traditional Disney princess love story kind of thing. And it was just Moana being her, simply being her, embracing her culture, doing her thing. And for that to not have been like, because they could have easily done that and wanted to, oh, now she's going to have a boyfriend or whatever, but they continued with like,
Yes.
just having her be on her own and embracing that.
Yes.
I appreciated that.
I love the new generation, because starting with Mulan was the first that really wasn't like a love story. And then we got Tiana. She was
Mhm.
about her business. Even though she did couple up later on, it was one of those that was not her focus.
Mhm.
Or my favorite is you fell in love within 2 minutes of meeting this guy and you're going to get married.
Yes. So thank you, Disney.
Yes.
Mahalo nui. We appreciate you. Please keep it coming. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait for Lilo and Stitch.
Oh, that too. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that.
May.
Yeah, that's gonna be another.
Yes.
I did see that trailer finally.
I might know something about that one too.
Yes. Pick up the comics. We have somebody on the show that's involved in the comics for Lilo and Stitch.
I know.
The trade is coming soon. Thank you for the reminder. I gotta go get my trade. But yes, thank you guys for tuning in. Chime in the comments. Let us know who your favorite character was, what you thought of Moana. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What do you want to see them do in the future? I'm sure there are many things that we could discuss and continue to discuss as this world expands. But thank you all. Thank you, James. Thank you, Dylan. Dana, as always. Appreciate y'all. Yes. So come back like in 15 minutes, really, like 15 minutes. Come on, go get you some, go use the bathroom, get a drink, get a snack, whatever.
Yes.
And come on back and celebrate with us as we, say goodbye to 2024
Yes.
and highlight some of the wonderful accomplishments from the podcast, but also for all of the folks who makes this show great, and talk about what's going on and what we're excited for in 2025.
Yes.
So with that said, ahui ho, everybody. Take care. Happy holidays. Enjoy the rest of your week, your weekend. I hope you guys get time down with your family. And we love y'all. So thank you so much for being a part of our community. Ahui ho.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then. When they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves a republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah. Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe. As a part of their ongoing war with Asia, used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No work out for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will. So if we put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system. Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe. As a part of their ongoing war with Asia, used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No work out for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.